Oh, I didn't see you there. Hope everyone's doing okay. Jokes aside, it's Dr. Allen, and I hope everyone is healthy and safe during our, I guess, hiatus from being on campus. Today is the first in a three-part series of Fireside Chats. As most of you know, I'm a social studies teacher at heart, and if you remember any of your U.S. history classes, FDR used to host some fireside chats during some of our more difficult times in the 30s and 40s. So I thought, why don't we do this for 583? Ours is going to be a three-part series. It's going to be on instruction, assessment, and today planning. And to be honest, actually, I'm kind of glad we're getting an opportunity to do this because when we start the class, especially with planning, I feel like a lot of things are in information dump. So I think today, because everyone at least has had a little more exposure, even with micro teaching or in the field, just kind of some ideas with planning and assessment and instruction. So now we can kind of take a breath and move forward with doing a little bit of just plain nuts and bolts type stuff with the lesson planning. If you have any types of questions after this video, feel free to come during office hours, which I'll have on Zoom, or fire me an email. There's nothing related to this than just a nice Q&A. Just to kind of give you an introduction to where I'm filming, I'm actually filming in my office in my home. I was going to put a background with a fireside behind it as I'm showing with my hands, but I didn't know how that would look. It might look like I'm in another place that starts with an H and ends with an L. But, you know, that's one of those things. Instead, I have the wonderful tower bridge there that my son, wife, and I all built as a team building exercise. So with all that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and push on through and talk a little bit about lesson planning. Again, I'll keep this kind of short and sweet. I just want to make a few points with lesson planning and kind of move forward from there. All right. So the first thing that I want to go over is I just want to show, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at this, and I'm going to pull it up. And in 1 second, whoops, you can't see it because guess what I didn't do? I didn't share my screen. Wah, wah. Let's go to it. All right, so hopefully now you all can see my screen. And what I'm going to do is pull up our current lesson plan template that we have for class. Hopefully you can see that. As you can see there, this is something hopefully everyone's seen. It's a little bit of a streamlined one, but just to kind of refresh. Your lesson plans should have a central focus. I will say I've tied that back into EdTPA because your EdTPA requires a central focus. I know you're on that there yet, but just basically what's the overall theme that you're going to be looking at with your lessons. Your rationale, just a quick paragraph stating what the aim of the lesson should be. Standards, that is your standards that your state is going to require. I know everyone, we have people from Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia in our class. I am going to take a moment because I don't know if I did this, I did it very early, and I probably did it very quick, but I want to show everyone where you can find the West Virginia. I'm just going to deal with West Virginia since we're a West Virginia school, and that is what I'm familiar with, standards. If you go to, I'm going to backtrack here. If you go back to this place called the West Virginia Department of Education, WVDE, you'll probably, once you get hired, especially in West Virginia, you'll get emails and a whole bunch of stuff from them. I would recommend if you have any type of social network to go ahead and follow them. They do put some good resources and such out. But if you click on WVDE standards, pop on there, it should, let's see if my internet's working well. There it is. You'll have early learning, which is elementary basically, and middle and secondary. I'm going to go to middle and secondary just because I think pretty much everyone but one, sorry Kristen, is going to be focusing on secondary. You click on this and you can see all the little different areas. I always operate in this one. And you'll probably start to know these by heart once you get hired somewhere, but there's the grades. And for example, I always like the 7th grade standards, so I'll click on the 7th grade ones. They're more world history. As you can see, mine are divided up into civics, econ, geography. But I think what I need to point out for you in your lesson plans, this is your standard right there. So for example, use correct geographic terminology to draw conclusions about information on a variety of maps, graphs, and charts. You're only going to have a standard or two probably with each lesson. If not, I don't know how you could cover them all. You know, these are a year-long thing, but that's where you find your standards. And just to kind of point it out, there are also resources here if you ever need them. Sometimes you can find stuff that they link up to. So that's your standards, just to kind of get sidetracked there briefly. But there's your standards, your learning objectives. We've talked about these. We wrote some of these. We did Nearpods on them. These are your SWAT, student will be able to. We talked about, you know, using active verbs, making sure that they're things that you can actually measure in class. That's something we'll come back to, or you can assess. You know, I always kind of like to have 3 objectives, one knowledge-based, one skill-based, and one attitudinal. I think that's how I would probably properly say that. But as you can see, I have examples. I'm not going to break them down. We went over this in class a little bit, but just in case you need to know, I always thought knowledge was nuts and bolts. Skills is the skills that you're going to have. Like if we were just doing that one on geography, relate to map skills. And the attitudinal will be something with awareness, social change, things like that. Those were ones that I aim for. Are you going to have all of these with each lesson? Probably not. And we have various levels of objectives in your lesson, most definitely. For this class, I like to see 3 in a lesson, but that's me. Materials, self-explanatory, what you're going to use. Academic and content-specific vocabulary. I will be straight up honest with you. I want you to get used to doing this because this is something else you're going to have to do for ETPA, but it's basically just the terminology that's in your field or the content area you're looking at. For secondary, this should be pretty simple. If you're in art, it's going to be art-related terms. In English, it's going to be English-related terms. If you're in elementary, it's going to be the content that you're actually teaching. So content area. So if you're doing science, it's going to be science-based. Now, that's pretty, I think this stuff's pretty self-explanatory, but the setup itself with lesson plans. I've even written this down in my notes. I'm going to point this. You can see me pointing this down here. One thing I just want to highlight, lesson planning, I think you will find, is more of a style type thing. You will probably find a setup that you really, really like. It might not be this one. It probably won't be this one. As long as you have all these key elements that I'm kind of going to talk about, you will be fine. You'll be fine in the future for different types of assessments and things like that. When you hit the field full time, of course, you're going to find your cooperating teacher has their own style. You're going to form your own. That's fine. Just make sure you're kind of addressing the heart of what lesson planning is and how your teaching style is going to be. For us, I want to look at 2 things. One, I'm going to look at the 5 E's, and the other one I'm going to look at is an inquiry-based setup. The 5 E's kind of addresses and also goes back to inquiry, but I just want to show you another one that's strictly inquiry-based. Just to kind of refresh a little bit, but what you need to do with your setup, the very first thing when you're going to set up your lesson plans and when you teach is you have to have that hook, that anticipatory set. That's the first part. Then you're going to have your activities, how you're going to teach it. You need to make sure that you assess. I have questioning techniques there. That's just your balloons, what questions you're going to specifically focus on there. We're going to come back to assessment in a couple weeks, but I do want to make a point on one thing. Your assessment has to map back to your objectives, and it should connect to your standards. What are you actually, if those are your objectives, how are you measuring those? That is something you've always got to be aware of. We talked about summative and formative type assessments. Of course, your summatives is the measurable one, the big one, I guess, is what most people think of it as. But, you know, there's various ways that you can do it. Again, we'll talk about the different types again in another one of these videos, and we did a little bit in class. And of course, your closure, that goes into that main part and such. Okay, pretty simple, and there's questions and all in there. I'm pointing at my screen. What I want to look at, though, is this part and how you're going to do things and how you might organize it. We all do all these things when we plan and all, and I have no doubt that you all do it. It's just, how can you make sure that you are having lessons developed that address all of these different tasks? I think one of the easiest ways, and I'm going to thank Erica for this because I know they did it in 585, I believe she said, with her one class, and I've read a good bit on it the last month or so. This is why I wanted to share it. I mentioned it in class, and then we kind of got rushed with the virus. It's called the 5 E's. I'm going to pull it up, and let me see if I can find it. Whoops, that's not the one I want. That's the one I want. The 5Es is a pretty straightforward way of teaching or organizing lessons. The 5Es are engage, explore, explain, extend, and evaluate. This is, I think, a nice way just to think about things. Now, I'm going to jump back here for a second. If you look here, we talked about this, and this is what the 5Es do. It's the I, we, you. It's when you're thinking about your students. I'm going to go first, and I'm going to tell you what this is and how we're going to do it. We are going to do some stuff together, and then you are going to do it. That I, we, you. We talked about that from Teach Like a Champion. 5Es kind of do that, but I think it's in a more structured way. A lot of science teachers like to use this, and actually a lot of social studies. That's one reason why I was kind of interested in it, because it lends itself to some things with related to inquiry based. Whoops. And there you go. Just to kind of tell you what the 5Es are. How are you going to engage your students? Ask questions. Of course, your engage is pretty straightforward. You already know what this is. It's the anticipatory set. Engage. That might be something that connects to that. It creates interest, as it says there. This, to me, is the heart. This is the meat. You're going to explore things, what activities you're going to do. You're going to maybe perform an investigation together, kind of go in there. As it says there, you're going to work together. You're going to encourage them to think freely and kind of keep going. Then you're going to explain. You might have students explain whatever they're looking at. You may help the students explain it. You're going to extend. That means they're probably going to go on their own, and they're going to do something, and they're problem solve. They're going to decision make. They're going to do things like that. And then, of course, you're going to evaluate, which goes back down to your assessment. And your extend also can kind of, I think, probably fall into your closure a little bit too. That's the 5Es. And again, just to kind of reiterate, I would say engage. That's your anticipatory or hook. Explore, explain, extend. Those are your meat. Might even fall into your closure a little bit. And evaluate, that's your assessment. That's it. That's a nice way to maybe think about planning. If you do all the 5Es, you've probably got some meaty lesson plans. I will make sure to take a screenshot and post this up if you all would like a copy of it. I thought this was one that I saw that was nice. I liked how it broke it down. That's the 5Es. That's one way to approach the organization of your lesson plans. You can throw the 5Es right in there. That's no problem. I would recommend it. It's nothing that's required. I just wanted to share it. It's one way to do it. Like I say, lesson planning is a little bit of an individual type thing. The other one, I'm not going to get too bogged down with it, but I thought I would share in case you're doing some sort of reading. I know we have some English people. I thought this might even connect to that, even though it's more social studies. This is the inquiry setup. There are a lot of templates out like this. And as you can see, it kind of breaks everything down related to supporting questions. And you have to actually type out every single thing. This one is a little more detailed, but it addresses the summative type things, how you're actually going to take the action. You're going to explain in paragraphs how you're meeting. You could actually bring the 5Es into this if you wanted to when you're typing up your organization. But this is just an inquiry based, and as you can see, everything's framed around supporting questions. And then, of course, you talk about how you're going to actually make it. This is one I like to type. I like to think my lesson plans are usually pretty detailed. I will put this template up if you're interested, but I don't know if it would fall into everyone. Like, I couldn't see this being done in elementary right off the bat, especially in like second, third, maybe fourth grade. But it's just another way to do it. You're staging the question. That's your hook. You're supporting questions. And then you kind of break everything down. As you see, the formative performance task, that might be a way that you're meeting one of your 5Es where you're engaging with the students. Remember, formative isn't actually the summative type exercise. And then I should say this, with an inquiry, you're actually breaking everything down around a specific source. It could be an image, it could be a map, it could be some type of reading. That's the inquiry base. I throw it on there. We have no social studies people, but I thought I would share it. And again, If I was you, I really like this one. I got to give full credit to Erica for mentioning it. It's a nice breakdown. And like I say, after reading it a little bit, I thought it was really good. That's just a little bit on lesson planning. Obviously, again, you have preferences. That's fine. Just check with me if you want to, maybe if you find another style you'd like to go with, if you were doing some of your lesson plans. A lot of you have already turned them in and they've been fantastic, so I can't really say anything negative. I also wanted to show you, as far as personal styles of things. Of course, now I can't find it. Well, I'm going to pull it up for you anyway. Maybe I left it behind there. Nope. Hang in there. This is just like class, isn't it? All right. I know I mentioned this, and I think I pulled it up quickly, but planbook.com, a lot of teachers use this. I think a lot of people, of course, if you're in Berkeley County, I'm not for sure about Jefferson County if they use it or not. A lot of people use Schoology. But the electronic plan books, especially once you get out in the field, a lot of people really like them. This is one that I used to use back in the day, as you can see last year. But you can organize them how you want. They usually have the standard rate in them. These are some of my 6th grade and 7th grade classes. You can see I had different strategies and such. That's planbook.com. This is something you can set this up however you want, especially for organization. And I'll show you real quick. There you go. You can see my strategies. You can do assignments. It keeps it for a year. What I'm on here trying to babble about is I would strongly suggest, if you're doing lesson planning, to maybe think about doing them electronically at some point, especially once you get hired, because you'll have a database where you can update things, add things to. One thing with lesson planning, I always think more is better. I'm talking handouts, links, things like that. Also, if you have something like this, you can pull them up for your students right in class. Let's see what I have here. This might have been something I showed my students, and instead of me having to do something, we did a field trip to the National Geographic Museum, and this I may have used something with questions just to ask them on here, but this was actually probably more for me, but I think you get the point. Oh, I would love to find something that I have for the students on here. Let's see what we have. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Dates and births in West Virginia. I taught West Virginia history for a while. There you go. In case you were wondering, this might have been something I did with an inquiry-based type exercise, and we were kind of looking at the dates and births of West Virginia. I would have included this in my plans. I did in planbook.com. I just think it's good to have all your resources. And what I'm kind of babbling here about is, if you would just take a moment once you get hired somewhere, or even when you get out in the field, and just start having a database where you put all these resources, you just have it, you can build upon it instead of trying to write things out all the time, or even Word documents, which are nice, but you don't have to print them out and such. So I'm kind of hyping a little bit planbook.com, but a lot of people like Schoology and such. The thing I liked about planbook.com is it's mine. It's not my district's. So when I left, I still have it. I don't lose everything. But that's just a little bit on planning. Again, if I want you to take anything out of this, be creative, look for different things that suit your style. Make sure you look over these templates. These are kind of the core things that you want to have in your lesson plans. And I'm going to give the big nod today, if I can pull it up, and I will again put it on my book. There it is. The 5 E's. If you engage, explore, explain, extend, and evaluate, you should be good to go. So that's our first fireside chat. I know it's a little rough around the edges, but it did give me a chance to kind of go back and revisit a few things, even if it was just briefly. I hope everyone is doing fine. Hang in there. I will share this video, and then there is no assignment with it. Just kind of take a look at it if you have the time. Don't forget to take a look at the PDF of Teach Like a Champion, just to kind of think of some ideas. And I'll be in contact this week. I hope that everyone is hanging in there. If you have any issues, feel free to drop by. And also don't forget, from 3 to 4 this Thursday, I will make sure that I am on Zoom. I'll send out a link. And also, of course, 10 to 11, Monday through Thursday, I will also be on Zoom. Or you can just email me if you need to set up a specific time. Please Hang in there. Hope everyone is healthy for the millionth time. We survived. Talk to you later. Bye.